Hi there, I'm Murray, and today instead of just talking at you for a few minutes, although I will do some of that, I'll be reading an excerpt from my first book, Destined. This is one of the few remaining copies of the original printing, so that should be fun. The text is still the exact same as what's available today. The section I'll be reading is from Chapter One, and it's a conversation in which Mari discovers that she's not exactly normal, nor does she come from a normal family. And while that may sound like the start of every young adult fiction, fantasy, adventure, coming-of-age story you've ever read, I'd like to think I take a little bit of a different spin on things. So without further ado, I hope you enjoy. The acidic tang of heating tomatoes led her to the kitchen. She saw her father, Ilya, standing at the stove, stirring a large stock pot with a wooden spoon. He was tall, but not unusually so, with a thin build and lightly tanned skin. His unruly curls were the same mahogany brown that he had passed on to his daughter, and likewise their eyes shared the same shade of mossy green. In fact, Mari often wondered if there was any trace of her mother in her at all, since she looked so much like her father, from their high cheekbones to their pointed fey chins. Ilya turned around at the sound of her footsteps, inquiring, "Marichka, how was your playing today?" A plate of cabbage leaves, a bowl of cooked rice, another of ground sausage, and a dish of spices made a neat row on the counter next to him. "It went well," she replied. "Is that halupki I smell?" Ilya smiled, his green eyes twinkling with mischief. "It certainly is," he said. He motioned for her to take over the stirring as he began to chop peppers on the cutting board. Mari stirred steadily, pulling the spoon through the thick red sauce in a clockwise circle. "You seem to be making an awful lot for just the two of us," she commented. "I'm assuming we're taking some to the new neighbors across the street?" Yes, he said, nodding. "The father came to the guitar shop for an interview. Nice man, very nice. He said they have a daughter your age. When we finish, you should take them a dish and make friends." "Sure thing," Mari said with another smile. She kept stirring slowly, watching the red begin to bubble and pop. "Any word from Baba Rojko?" Ilya frowned. "Babushka sent another letter." "Can I read it?" "Perhaps later," he said. His frown deepened. "Okay," Mari replied, somewhat confused. Her grandmother's weekly letters were hardly cause for concern. Half of the time they were relayed messages from their extended family, begging them to come back to Slovakia. The other half they were just a collection of pleasantries and vague updates on family happenings. Sniffing the cooking tomatoes, she said, "I think we can add the rice and sausage now." Her father poured the rice, sausage, peppers, and spices into the tomatoes as Mari continued to stir. Once everything was combined, they began stuffing the mixture inside the cabbage leaves. Mari winced a few times as drops of the hot stuffing scalded her skin. As they finished folding each cabbage leaf into a neat pocket, they laid them out one by one in a casserole. Her father garnished the rows of stuffed cabbage with dill and parsley and placed the dish in the oven. He hit the timer and disappeared into the living room. When he returned, he handed Mari a folded piece of paper. "Baba Rojko's letter," he explained. "Did something happen? Is she okay?" Mari asked, starting to get worried. "She is well enough. Just read," he said, before retreating again into the living room. Mari heard him shuffling a newspaper as she sat down in the kitchen. She skimmed over the first few lines, trying to make sense of her grandmother's tiny, neat script. Mari frequently marveled at how precise her grandmother's English was, despite having never left her home country. Before Ilya and Mari had emigrated, the three of them spent hours together every evening, poring over textbooks and practicing their speech. At the time, Mari could barely read her native tongue, let alone decipher the complex exercises in the English books. But her father and grandmother had been patient tutors. They had lived within a Romani camp settled on the outskirts of a small city in the far eastern part of the state. After his wife died giving birth to Mari, Ilya was determined to provide better opportunities for his only daughter, specifically one with access to modern medicine. Thus, he spent the first 7 years of Mari's life saving up enough money to get the two of them as far as America. Once they passed successfully through customs, he borrowed a map, closed his eyes, and randomly picked a city. That's how they ended up settling in Saffron County, a small town nestled in the mountains of southwest Virginia. 10 years later, Mari hardly remembered her previous life. It was only the letters from her grandmother that reminded her periodically that the Romani camp still existed, and that somewhere in Eastern Europe she really did have more family than just her dad. Right, the letter. Mari shook herself out of her reminiscences and returned her focus to the piece of paper she clutched in her hands. "My darling Maraka, you will not like what I am about to tell you, but you are old enough now to know the truth of your heritage and your destiny. Perhaps we should have told you long ago, but we agreed to keep the secret until you were an adult. The Rojko family is not a normal Romani family. We serve a specific purpose, one which you are fated to fulfill. You, little Maraka, are the summoner. prophesied since the ancient times to help bring about a great change in the worlds. Either this change will result in the dawning of a golden era, or else it will bring about great destruction and chaos. The choice, my dear, will be yours. Our family has known of this prophecy since a traveling magician entrusted us with the care of its fulfillment many centuries ago. He gave a series of items to our elders, who passed them down to each generation. Once you were born, we saw the mark upon your foot and knew you were the child touched by fate. When you left, I made your father promise that he would take the sacred items with him, keeping them safe until you came of age. I had hoped that your destiny would not call you until you were older, but unfortunately the signs point to a change coming very soon. Ask your father to show you the heirlooms. You will need them in order to follow your path. Do not be scared, my granddaughter. You will succeed. With deepest love, Tvoya babushka. Mari read the letter 3 times before it started to make sense, and even then she was still half convinced that she must be reading it wrong. She read it a 4th time and started to read it a 5th before finally deciding that either this was the strangest attempt at a birthday prank, and several months too early at that, or else her grandmother had finally gone completely and utterly insane. She refolded the letter along the creases and stormed into the living room. Dad, she asked, what the hell is this supposed to mean? Did Babushka finally lose it, or is this some sort of joke? It is nothing but a silly story the elders tell, trying to feel important, Ilya said. His normally calm, even voice was practically a growl. Mari blinked at him in disbelief. She opened her mouth to retort, but the timer went off, interrupting her already scattered thoughts. She tossed the letter at her father and stomped into the kitchen. She was in such a hurry to shut off the oven and take out the holubki that she forgot to put on an oven mitt, and so she cursed as she burned her fingers on the hot glass. She nearly jumped out of her skin when her father placed a warm hand on her shoulder. I am sorry I had not warned you of this sooner, he said. They always said that the time of changing was your 18th birthday. Well, September's still 2 months away, and Baba Rojko's letter seems to imply that this destiny bullshit is about to go into effect a lot sooner than that, Mari fired, blowing on her reddened fingertips. She was not looking forward to the inevitable blisters. Just great. My bass playing's gonna suck till these heal. And we have a gig next week. Grun's gonna be so pissed. They were actually gonna pay us this time. He will get over it, Ilya replied softly. Come, let us eat before the holubki goes cold. Fat chance of that, she grumbled. They set the table quickly, Ilya spooning the steaming stuffed cabbage on each of their plates, while Mari poured hot tea from the kettle. They ate in silence for several minutes until Mari finally asked, So what's with these heirlooms? You believe in her letter now? Ilya inquired in response. No, I didn't say that, Mari said, rolling her eyes. I'm just curious. Jewelry, books, what? Ilya frowned and scratched his chin. Not books, exactly, he said eventually, and only a little jewelry, and something else. I will show you after dinner. Do you believe in the prophecy or story or whatever? I do not know, he said, somewhat sadly. I grew up hearing of little else, but when I met your mother, everything changed for me. I suddenly could see a life for me, for us, that was not stuck in a camp, persecuted and hated, called Tsigan. I wanted to leave, and then my poor, sweet Verechka was too good for this world, and she named you Maraka with her dying breath. My mother saw the crescent moon on your foot and said you were the summoner. I didn't believe her at first, but what else was I to do? She is my mother. She made me promise. You mean that silly little birthmark on my foot? Seriously? That's what this is all about? Mari tried to mask her mixed curiosity and disbelief by shoveling more stuffed cabbage into her mouth. He shook his head slowly, saying, It is more than that. Ilya rose from the table, his empty plate in his hand. Come, we have both eaten more than enough. I will get the heirlooms out of the basement so you can see for yourself how silly the elders are. Then we will both laugh, and you can take the rest of the holubki to our new neighbors. I am sure they are hungry. He put his plate on the sink and walked away, disappearing into the basement. Mari sighed, arranging the remaining stuffed cabbage on a large platter. She stretched tinfoil across the top, to busy herself while her father gathered whatever mysterious heirlooms she would apparently inherit in order to fulfill an equally mysterious, and, she thought, unlikely, destiny. She cleared off the rest of the table and began to rinse the dishes in the sink. Finally, her father returned from the basement, lugging a large duffel bag behind him. He hauled the bag up and let it drop in the center of the kitchen table with a loud clank. Mari watched with a raised brow as he unpacked the contents. When he was finished, 4 bundles of different sizes were laid out, as well as a small velvet pouch and an old brown folder. Where's the jewelry? She asked. He shot her an exasperated look. Be patient, my daughter. The jewels are in here, he said, pointing to the pouch. He tugged open the drawstring, and a glimmer of stones poured out in different shapes and colors, a green moon, a black sword, something in blue. They caught the light, twinkling and sparkling. "But these," he said, indicating the larger bundles, "these are what concern me." "What's in those?" Mari asked, her curiosity beginning to outweigh her doubt. Ilya pulled back one of the wrappers, and a glint of silver caught the lamplight. "A sword?" she squeaked. "What the hell am I supposed to do with that?" So, I'll end it there, and thanks for watching. I'm sure this is super long at this point, and stay tuned for next time.